Hello, my name is James Berry and I'm a helicopter pilot working in the UK. And if you've been following along, I've been making a series of videos on the 7 steps to become a professional helicopter pilot. Now this video is part of step 7, the career path, where I'm going to be talking about 3 separate paths that you can take post CPL. Now, like I mentioned in the introductory video, this one will be focused on the multi-engine instrument rating and requires roughly £60,000 to undertake. But it does lead you to the large helicopters, the offshore and the better salaries. So what is a multi-engine instrument rating, or an MEIR? Essentially, it's a qualification that allows you to fly under IFR or instrument flight rules in multi-engine helicopters. I won't get too far into the specifics of this because this will be covered on your course, but it's important to note that pretty much everything you've done up till now will most probably be visual flight rules or VFR during the day in single engine helicopters. In its simplest form, instrument flight rules or IFR flying has much lower weather minima than anything you've done so far, including but not limited to flying in the actual clouds. In addition to these new rules which will fly, you'll also be flying a multi-engined aircraft, which is potentially a very different kind of beast than what you've been used to. It needs to be operated differently. You'll need to get used to performance profiles, what's called the twin-engined mindset, and not to mention perhaps your first experience with a turbine helicopter instead of a piston one. They are different. I can speak from experience when I say that the jump from the single engine flying to the multi-engine flying by itself, without the introduction of an instrument rating, is a steep learning curve. So if you add in the IR as well, this is a lot to ask of a new pilot. Because this isn't my specialty and I didn't take this route, I have gained an interview with Robin Gibson of Castle Air Academy. These guys are industry leaders in IR and high level training, and I'm very grateful they've given us an interview, and he is here to advise you further.
Hi, my name's Robin Gibson. I'm Head of Training and Chief Training Captain for Castle Air. Castle Air are probably the largest UK helicopter company onshore. We deal with air ambulance, charter, maintenance, training schools, load lifting and military contracts. I started flying with microlights, hang gliders and paragliders back in the early 80s. I've been a pilot full-time since the mid-90s, so about 30 years nearly. Obviously, helicopters is quite an expensive career to get into, to get yourself trained, but the rewards from it are fantastic, and anybody who's doing this can expect quite a high salary at the end of it. So there are a lot of different ways of becoming a commercial helicopter pilot. The most cost-effective way is to do an integrated course where you do the ground school in a classroom for 6 months, and then you do the flying element of it, and there are various different levels of this. So you can do CPL, which is a commercial pilot's license, or you can do an integrated CPL with an instrument rating. Most of the jobs that people will be trying for, it has become a requirement in the UK pretty much that you will require an instrument rating. The only problem with this is your expenditure will probably be about £140,000, plus you've got to try and live as well during that time, so you've got housing, accommodation, those sort of things going on. There are other routes. You can do it modular. It will work out a lot more expensive in the long run, but people can sort of do this at their own pace. So what they do is they do modules. So they do a private license, PPL, and then they'll progress and build their hours, and they will then have to do the examinations, which you can do distance learning, or you could do them in a school like we have, where we have a classroom for people to sit for 6 months. But a lot of people, if they choose this modular route, may go down the modular theoretical knowledge side. Then they do a modular CPL course, which is 30 hours of flying, and then they take a test. Then they do a modular instrument rating. The difference would be that if you did an integrated CPL IR, you would do 180 hours and come out with 180 hours of flying, and you'd have instrument rating and all of the requirements to get a job. If you did that through the modular route, to give you an idea, you only come out of the CPL with 185 hours, so 5 hours more, plus you then need to do a 50-hour flying module on top of that to obtain an instrument rating. So you're 60 hours more of flying to do a modular course. So you can see the cost, it's cost effective to do it integrated, but people have to find the money up front. An instrument rating is likely to be, in the UK, the hardest test that any pilot will do during his career. Usually when they come, we've had people from other places, other schools come to us just to do a modular IR. They find that the learning curve is virtually vertical. They come here and then they realise that the course, it's not an attendance course, obviously. You are here for probably 8 weeks, and you'll do 40 hours of simulator and probably around 20 hours of aircraft with the tests. And most people do not feel ready for the test when that appears, because but we have an extremely high pass rate, but I would say it's the actual study that you have to put in to pass the instrument rating. So that's probably, if you want to say, that's probably one of the worst aspects of it, is the amount of study that you need to put in. Probably the best thing about it is it will change you as a pilot. So people will come here flying single-engined day VFR, visual flight rules aircraft, and will leave as fully fledged commercial pilots that can fly in any weather, and then this allows them to get a job pretty much anywhere. So if you have an instrument rating and a CPL, you'll stand a very good chance of getting employment with offshore, where somebody of a very young age can actually start money is fantastic, and the progression in your career is great. So the best bit is what comes after the instrument rating, and I'd say whilst you're doing it, it's the study that is probably the worst. I answer the phone pretty much used to be on a daily basis to people, trying to give them the correct advice, what suits them. Certain things are going to suit certain people differently, and it's got to try and fit in with your life choices and how you want your life to work, really. So if you could afford to, the way to do it is integrated, and you do it in the shortest possible time, but obviously there's the expense up front to do that. I would say some people, because of their lifestyle, need to do it modular, but the thing that everybody needs to do is, because not many people know a helicopter pilot, they'll look online. The thing to do is to talk to people in this career and get as much knowledge as you can. Be very careful when you sign up for a course anywhere. There are lots of questions that you need to ask that you won't know what the questions are. So really, it's information before you decide to go down a direction. Because I've seen people that go into this and they can waste a lot of money or go off in the wrong direction, or I have seen people that have signed up with companies that have gone bankrupt in the aviation world. So you need to do your homework before you start down the route, and have an idea of where you want to be at the end. The majority of people will say to you they want to do something like air ambulance or heli skiing or police or something. But what you need to be aware is that the jobs such as offshore police and air ambulance will require some form of certain ratings and certain knowledge. Probably the best route for somebody starting out, in my opinion, would be to go offshore. So somewhere like Bristow's or CHC, NHV, some of the offshore operators on the North Sea. Because what will happen is they will employ people with low hours, and you will gain the experience, and you will be in a position that you could probably go anywhere in the world after you've been there a couple of years. But you're probably 4 or 5 years in. But the majority of the people want to stay there because the money's quite good. But I've done some very interesting things during my career. I've done load lifting, air ambulance, police, training, examining, charter, where you fly celebrities, VIP people. Certain parts of any job are extremely enjoyable in this job, but there is continual testing and studying, and when you're dealing with people who are spending a lot of money, you have to commit to trying to get these people to pass. So at the moment I do a lot of training and examining, which from my side is probably the examining is not as enjoyable. Training's great because you meet a lot of different people. From pure pleasure of doing a job, I would say my most enjoyable job that I've ever done is air ambulance. I find that very rewarding. And some days you cannot believe that people are actually paying you to do this job, which is a little bit unusual in any job, really, to be truthful. So yes, without a doubt, the rewards are fantastic. Do your homework, talk to the right people. We're happy to give free advice to people. I think really my advice to anybody would be just talk to as many people as possible before you go down the road of being a pilot, a helicopter pilot. But the rewards are fantastic.
Do you enjoy it?
Thanks again, Robin and Castleair Academy, for your help and time with this video. Just before we wrap up, there are some extra thoughts I have to add to this. Some questions you may have answered. Why multi-engine? I've talked a lot about multi-engine helicopters. Why not single engine instrument rating? Although this qualification exists in the UK, it is not used commercially at all and is basically rendered useless in a career perspective. The industry is crying out for instrument-rated pilots. There are not enough of them, so you will not struggle to find a job. However, most of the people that hire low-time instrument-rated commercial pilots are the offshore industries, so that may involve a relocation to Aberdeen or Norwich. It could be Scotland or up north. So make sure you factor that into your decision-making process. This path does send you onto the higher level and paying salaries of commercial air transport and offshore and potentially air ambulance, but it will mean that most likely you'll miss out on the instructing and small tourist flights. Now, those jobs aren't for everyone, but bear in mind you will be missing out on a stage or a selection of the industry. However, this is the fastest path to build your commercial career. It was not the path open to me at a rough cost of $60,000. This cost is slightly variable depending on which aircraft you choose to do it in. There are multiple options. And also take into fact, if your heart is absolutely set on this goal, as Robin does talk about the integrated option, if from the get-go, this is what you want. I want to fly instrument-rated helicopters, big stuff. I want to go straight for offshore or air ambulance. Then look at the integrated route. My estimations would say that it would save you roughly £20,000 over the modular route that I took. Everything I did was modular, but I wasn't going down this path. Just to add, although the prerequisite for an IRH is easily met, there is an additional limit for a single pilot multi-engine helicopter rating. The main element of this is the 70 hours PIC. This can also be easily met by the start of your multi-engine training, just to ensure that you reach that minimum during your hour building and pre-CPL. There is only about 2.5 hours of pilot and command in the CPL course, that being your night solo circuits and the skills test. If you're interested in any of the other pathways after CPL, please see me in my next video where I'll be talking about what I did, which was become a flying instructor. And if you need any help with aviation, reach out to me on my socials. Please leave comments in the video. I love it when you guys engage with me, and please subscribe. It massively helps me in building this platform and doing more ambitious content in the future. Reach out to me on superprof.com to any help with theory, tuition, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.